Tasidile, namaskar. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pasang Dolma Sherpa. I work for CIPRED, Center for Indigenous People Research and Development, based in Kathmandu, Nepal. We have been working for promotion, protection, recognition of our knowledge, our cultural values, governance structures, practices in the discourse of climate actions, biodiversity conservations, and enhancing ecological connectivity in our landscape. As a inaugural co-chair of facility working groups of local community and indigenous people platform within the UNFCCC, I just would like to share my reflections, my own engagements in the UNFCCC. Regarding the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and engagements of indigenous people, we started, along with our elders and the leaders, that how important the indigenous representatives in the IPCC. When I was in the LCIPP, we also had layers of dialogue in the, and try to familiar with each others. And we have been really pushing for that why indigenous knowledge system, our representatives on the equal footing basis matters in the global discourse and the global, the reports of IPCC to reflect our stories and our experiences on the ground for climate action. Most recently, apart from my earlier engagements in the global levels, regional levels, most recently, I also joined IPCC dialogue with indigenous people in Reading University. And that also opened a forum for not only the diverse knowledge system, but more specifically on indigenous knowledge system, why it matters, why our story is important. And we also provided layers of recommendation that in the IPCC that indigenous peoples, our representatives, not just taken as a tokenism, and not just only object of being researched to be incorporated in the IPCC panel, but also bring our voice and concerns as the authors, as a key, knowledge holders, key authors, key representatives, and bringing the dialogue, and change the structures of IPCC from more indigenous-friendly environment that indigenous peoples, experts, indigenous people knowledge holders, authors can take the ownership for bringing our voice and concerns and stories that has been very pertinent role for climate actions on the ground, And we have also been urging that, the epic is really, really important when you deal with the indigenous people stories that incorporated with the indigenous people's, the research protocols from indigenous friendly, the research methodology. That if we enhance further on this part, then in a long run that the solution for climate actions comes with our stories and the experiences and to be continued by our young generation. So, and then, the backward action, regarding the backward action plans, we started as an inaugural co-chair in 2019. We started first time 12 activities for 2020 and 2021. And that is shaped the foundation for enhancing continuation of our knowledge holders, policy dialogue, Asia, in the regional different regional exchange, and more recently that we also enhance for engagements of the youth and dialogue. That youth engagements is not just only for the future actions, but as a present actors, for bringing the climate action through our knowledge, values, practices, and continued on the ground. So with this one, in my experience, that in comparison to the past, that these kind of backward action plans should not be just limited on the global and the regional, but it has to be brought onto into the national and community level, and then more youth and more knowledge holders, indigenous experts can bring more solutions on the ground to work along with the IPCC, but also with our local governments, federal governments, for the climate actions, and that is how we can build harmonious society for and for all of us to living in harmony and peaceful manners while addressing the climate. With this one, I will end my presentation, and my colleague, my friend, Mrinal Kanti Tripura will continue the adding further presentation, and also and sharing his rich experience, and also response any questions if you have in person. Thank you so much, Cisse.